All right. Thank you guys so much. This class is in a webinar format, so your cameras will not be active during the presentation. That means I can't see anybody. So sometimes I feel like I'm talking to myself, and sometimes that's fun, and sometimes it's not. If you can hear me, though, you are in the right place. You only have to attend this now to receive your credit. Your time here is being tracked by Trek, and they will issue your credits. Usually, you give them about a week or so, because there's nothing that we can do for them. This is totally on their end. If you have any questions about our services, booking an inspection or a class or anything like that, please don't hesitate to reach out. We service TLC. We service the Austin, Houston, San Antonio, and all the surrounding areas. I have put in the chat down there some contact information, make it easier for everybody, and view a schedule of some of our other classes coming up, which I will show you in just a second. So again, thank you all very much. Appreciate you coming to Stucco 101. Just a heads up, we will be recording this, so it will be available to anyone that wants it later. If you want a copy, if you can make it easier on me, put your name and email address in the chat. That way I have everything in one little place, and I'll send you a copy of it later. This class is going to be good for 2 credits, which is really cool toward your license renewal. Again, Trek takes about a week, give them a week or so to get all that stuff posted. And unfortunately, there's nothing, we can do about that. As soon as this gets over, I submit the attendance, as soon as we're done, we wrap this up and Trek takes it from there. So that's the only thing that I can do. You are going to get an email with an option to leave some feedback about today's class. So all feedback, good or bad, doesn't matter, because we are always just trying to improve, trying to make the curriculum better, make the experience better. So I openly will welcome, some constructive criticism, or if you thought I was just flat awesome, please let my bosses know. I appreciate that. If you choose not to leave any feedback, that's cool too. You still get the credit. My name is John Bolton, and I am going to be your instructor today. I started doing inspections back in 1998. And besides a degree in building construction, I've accumulated quite a few certifications and licenses along the way. I've completed about 12,000 various inspections throughout my career and have helped train and develop inspectors across the country. I'm also a national speaker on all things inspection related. I've published many articles and even written a couple books. Not to brag, just to let you know where I'm coming from and maybe earn just a little bit of your trust. If you guys have any questions as we go along, like I said, I can't see anybody. And as you know, it's kind of hard to watch the chat. So feel free to speak up. I'll do my best to watch the chat, but you know how hard it is to talk, use your hands, and watch the chat all at the same time. So really quick here, we have some other fantastic classes that anybody can join. They're always free. They're always worth continuing ed. And here's a few of them we got coming up, including some popular ones like mold and septic was a good one, residential structural inspections. Again, I've posted a link in the chat for you already, and that leads to our continuing education portal. If you're interested in attending any of those classes, just follow that link and you can sign up for whatever you want. Again, they're all worth the credit to you. So, whoops. Sorry. So before we get rolling, this class is sponsored by TLC Home Inspections. TLC is a local multi-inspector firm servicing the Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and all those areas. Here is what you get when you choose TLC as your home inspection partner. We do over 6,000 inspections a year, so we come from a ton of experience. We know you guys work 7 days a week, and so we are available for you 7 days a week as well. We include industry-leading warranties with every full home inspection for protection beyond the inspection. We are also excited to provide you and your clients with access to HomeBinder. HomeBinder for the client is a single, simple, secure online platform for all their home maintenance needs. Clients can store all their home's documents, including like all their inspection reports, the warranty stuff, repairs, renovations, all those kind of things. And then they get maintenance reminders and appliance recall notifications. HomeBinder also, they even offer a free concierge service that clients can use to find and set up utilities and services and things like that when they're moving, all those kind of things. In that service, those companies are all vetted to each specific market. Now, clients don't have to use the HomeBinder thing at all. It's a totally complimentary, totally free service TLC makes available for all of our clients and agents. And speaking of agents, for you, the agent, HomeBinder brands every message and reminder sent to the client with your information to keep you at the top of their mind. So it's free marketing for you guys. They also provide a free repair pricer for deficiencies found in the report. Those things are researched to the specific geographical area so that they're accurate estimates. Now, this repair pricer only goes to you, the agent, okay? Only goes to you, doesn't go to the client. That way you can use it as you desire. We typically deliver all our inspection reports within a few hours of the inspection, as long as the technology gods are on our side. TLC has over 1,400 five-star reviews online, so we take client services very, very seriously. We even offer a 200% money-back guarantee. What that means is, if you are not completely satisfied with the inspection, not only are we going to refund their money, but we're also going to pay for and send out the inspector of their choice to redo the inspection. This takes away any risk of giving us a shot. So here are a few things that help separate us from the also-rans, the competition. We do a free thermal imaging scan on every inspection we perform. That gives us the ability to help identify things like missing insulation, leaks, overheated breakers, leaky ductwork, all kinds of things that you cannot see with your eyeballs. Most of our packages include foundation elevation readings as well. So again, that helps take the guesswork out of that whole foundation assessment things, especially you live in those areas with clay, a lot of clay content. That way, clients get like actual data for that house recorded right there to help them know how that foundation's performing. With most of our packages, irrigation systems included, free, up to 12 zones, right? We do in-house termite, in-house swimming pool, septic, and depending what market you're in, we offer free, or I'm sorry, not free, but we offer mold and indoor air quality assessments. We can take surface samples, air samples, all those things depending on the scope of the situation. And we do sewer scope inspections as well. And last, really quick, we are stoked to announce that we now offer the option for your clients to pay at close, right? And with no extra fees. This will allow your client to get all the options they want to add, like mold testing, radon, sewer scoping, all those kind of things that they might have otherwise foregone because they didn't want to spend the money. This way, they add it in there at the end and they don't even feel it. All right, let's get into the good stuff. Here are the objectives for today. We are going to cover what the heck is stucco actually. We're going to go over the different types of stucco out there, some of the pros and cons of stucco siding. We're going to talk about each layer that's installed in a stucco system. We're going to go over the inspection process as well as a little bit of an overview of what's done in an invasive stucco inspection. We are going to discuss things that you need to keep an eye on, things that you're going to have to monitor. So any kind of red flags and stuff like that you might encounter with stucco siding, as well as maintenance tips on how to keep that system performing for a long time. So let's get into it. All right, let's start with what is stucco, right? Stucco, that's when you sit on gummo. And I'm imagining everybody laughing right now because I work really hard on this stuff. Like, you didn't catch that, stucco, sit on gummo, get stucco. If nobody gives me any thumbs up, I will sit here and entertain myself all day today. I have 4 hours. Kidding. I have 2, but I'm trying. All right, stucco siding is a type of hand troweled masonry plaster made up of cement, water, lime, and sand. Okay, it comes in all kinds of different textures and finishes. And if it's installed properly, stucco can actually really provide a good and very durable protection against the element. We're talking 50 plus years, right? There are a couple common stucco types that you're going to encounter, and that would be hard coat and synthetic. The first is going to be traditional stucco or hard coat stucco. It's a mix of cement, sand, lime, and water. This helps create a hard, rock-like finish with some really cool and interesting textures. It's applied in 1, 2, or 3 coats, depending on the type of system, and it'll have either metal or plastic flashings that help isolate sections and help to drain away water. So this is typically applied over an exterior wall sheathing, something like OSB or plywood. And this is right here that you're looking at is a really great diagram to kind of show you how it's built, right? Now we're going to discuss all these in a little bit more detail as we go throughout the presentation, but the diagram's cool, right? I love that. That helps, the visual helps it sink in. So as you can see here, you've got your wall framing, wall sheathing, which again is typically OSB or plywood. You've got a waterproof building paper or WRB, which is a water resistant barrier. If you want to sound cool, WRB. Then you have a metal lath, your scratch coat, your base coat, then a brown coat and a finish coat. And then, of course, you see at the bottom there a drip screed or a weep screed, whatever we use those terms interchangeably. We're going to discuss some of these various types of flashings and stuff like that as we go through the presentation. But I like to start out with a visual. So as we go through this, it makes more sense that way anyway. These are just some of the textures. Thank you. I did get a ha-ha. Thank you, Miss Lisa. I appreciate you. So you see there's all kinds of different cool looking textures. All right, the next type that you might encounter is a synthetic product, otherwise known as EIFS. EIFS, E-I-F-S, EIFS stands for Exterior Insulated Finishing System. It is a multi-layered exterior system that uses this acrylic resin it's very resistant to water damage. Although it's not as common as hard coat, you will see it occasionally. EIFS was extensively used in Europe before it came here. They've been using it over there since like World War II, long time ago. Here they found it to be a really good, or over there they found it a really good product to repair a lot of building damage and stuff from the war where that stuff came from. So a lot of those buildings over there are stone, concrete, brick, things like that. So using that type of material was just common sense. It was very, very practical. EIFS was primarily used on commercial buildings here in the States since like the 80s. Okay, so it's been around for a long time. If you're like me, 80s, it feels like yesterday, but you look on the calendar and that was 40 years ago, right? Long time ago. But we started using it in the residential market here back in the 80s. If anybody remembers some of the like, massive failures, it was all over the news and stuff. Water would get in and water couldn't get out. And people were experiencing severe damages, massive mold issues and termite issues and all that kind of stuff because the water would get in and couldn't get out, and it just rotted everything. You can, even today, do Google images on some of those, and it's nasty. I'll show you. Well, matter of fact, here's a couple pictures right here. They're obviously doing an investigative inspection there on the left, cutting out an area to look, and you see like it's completely damaged. That sheathing that is just gone. Picture on the right, and that's just a small portion. You can imagine what the rest of the building looks like. And we have seen a lot of that kind of stuff, especially those older systems. It's not that the systems were bad, they were just really never applied properly. With these systems, and that being said, there's obviously pros and cons, just like anything else, right? So here's some of the pros. Stucco is very appealing for a number of reasons. First of all, fire resistance. All right. To give you a perspective, a 1-inch coating of stucco gives you a 1-hour firewall rating, which means it helps prevent the spread of fire from one side of the wall to the other, right? For at least an hour. That's pretty cool. That makes it, very desirable, especially when you have multifamily, a lot of dwellings, those neighborhoods where houses are built really close to each other, those kind of scenarios. Then again, you have the aesthetics. You can add different, shades right to the mix. Some nice deep earth tones, and by adding these dyes and stuff like that straight to the mix. Heck, you can even carve your name into it when it's wet. It does come with some downsides though. Here's a couple of cons to consider. Because it's a brittle type of thing, a stucco siding will crack if a house foundation settles or water gets in, right? Simply put, it isn't the best choice in regions where soil has real high clay content. That's notorious for swelling and causing foundations to shift. I understand you do have some areas on the east side of Austin where there's really high clay content. What happens with the clay is the expansion and contraction thing that comes with the rain and the drought, right? It's going to happen. It's one of those things that all you can do is manage. So in those areas, it isn't the greatest option. One plus over time, even stucco on homes that have, solid foundations, good soils, that kind of thing, can develop hairline cracks. And remember, the better you caulk, seal, and paint, the better that house is going to perform, period. All cracks leak, and when water gets in, bad things happen. Finally, I guess the last, stucco does have a good insulation factor. Again, in perspective, a 1-inch layer of stucco has about a 0.2 R value, right? It's not going to be horribly desirable in super cold climates, but not too bad in the South, right? So to better understand how stucco works, let's do a little bit deeper dive into what we call various layers of a stucco application. So constructing a wood frame stucco wall is basically, it's building a sandwich. You have multiple, multiple layers. Sorry. You have multiple layers that go into this process. We're going to discuss some of these layers and how they come together to create a very good, in the end, water-resistant barrier system. Once we get through the various layers, I do have a real short video. It's like 7 minutes. It's pretty quick. That really helps that, trigger some of those other senses. You see it, you hear it, and you get to kind of experience it via the internet here, and it helps it sink in a lot easier. So it all starts with a substrate, okay, or wall sheathing. This right here is a typical Texas house. Besides structural value, in that sheathing, the sheathing provides the surface in which all of these layers are going to be installed on top of. All right. Sheathing is typically, or it can be wood like OSB or plywood. It can be cement board, gyp board, or even fiberglass board. Obviously, when you are building something with OSB or plywood, that type of wood can be very absorbent, which is why it's so important that all of the following layers are done properly.
John, excuse me for interrupting. Are those lines drawn on there?
Whoop. Oh yeah, those are printed on the sheathing, depending on what you're using them for. Sometimes, like when you're putting sheathing on a roof, they know where the underlayment goes, and they can just follow those lines. So yeah, that's just stuff printed. When you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, whatever, those kind of things will be on there.
Okay.
Good question though. All right, this is the water resistant barrier, or the WRB for cool people. Now, the WRB, it's used as part of the exterior wall system and is designed to prevent air and water from getting into the wood stuff from the outside, okay? But it also allows the free passage of water vapor to the exterior of the building. So framing, wall cavity, all that stuff stays dry. And when you do that, then you don't get the mold and the wood rot and the termites and all that kind of stuff, right? Because of all the water-related problems and lawsuits, and to minimize problems, builders have started integrating improved moisture management type solutions. There are a lot of products and processes on the market now, including synthetic underlayments. Like nobody uses felt paper anymore. Everything is a synthetic underlayment nowadays. There's different rain screen type systems. Sometimes you can't help it. Water gets in and you have to manage it once it gets in. So it helps drain incidental waters that gets into these systems. There's different sealants and a lot of really cool flashing membranes that are like self-adhered around windows and stuff that are really cool. A lot of advances in technology and building codes, all these things are evolving, mostly because, again, water gets in, bad things happen, mold issues, structural issues, those kind of things. So each of these moisture management products, has its place, depending on your local environment, the project details, so forth. So if you're building a house and considering stucco, it's always worth consulting a professional and see what type of moisture management system the manufacturer recommends, for your project, for your particular environment. Moisture management is always the most important thing because water gets in, bad things happen. So when we do something like a pre-drywall inspection on stucco homes, that's one of the main things we want to look at is the moisture barrier. The next layer is the metal lath. If you think of this as rebar for stucco, that's kind of a really, really good analogy, right? There's a whole wide range of systems that are used in the lathing process of stucco nowadays. So I wanted to, discuss some of the different types that are available and what application they are used for. Certain types of wire are better suited for different things, and knowing which type of lath to go with your stucco is really an essential part of the whole process. So we're going to look at a few of these right now. The first one is going to be a 17 gauge wire, and this is typically known as a 3-coat stucco wire. Okay, the wire sticks off the wall just a little bit, and that's called furring. Like a pet has fur, it's called furring, or a furring strip. You might be familiar with a furring strip. That way, the stucco gets, they call it keying it in behind the lath. It gets pushed in. Those are real common terms that you'll hear and you can use to, dazzle your clients with. But you have to be able to get that metal in the middle of all that stuff. The middle is best you can. Remember, think of it like rebar. You want to make sure that's in the center. So any water, because when water gets in, the metal will corrode, right? As the metal corrodes, it expands, and stucco, all concrete, is very weak in tensile strength, and it'll make the cracks bigger, allowing more water, and the whole degradation process is faster. Okay, so you want to make sure you get that in there into the middle, and I will show you what it looks like when you don't here in the next one. But the two different pictures we have here, they show the same gauge wire, but the picture on the left is using a wire that uses a square pattern, and the one on the right is a more common what do you call it, honeycomb pattern, right? Both are going to work just fine and are acceptable for a 3-coat system. It's really a lot of personal preference of the installer. That wire is going to be galvanized, of course. That helps prevent corrosion over years. And because remember what happens when water gets in? Bad things happen. That's right. Here's what it looks like when the stucco is too thin or the wire is too close to the surface. Right? Here you can actually see that lath that's corroding. And it cannot get better with time. It can only get worse. So to say that this is just aesthetic, I would say is inaccurate, right? That will only get worse. And when you let it go for a really long time, this is what it looks like. This is chronic water absorption and intrusion, and it's caused that lath to literally disintegrate. And now you look through that, like let me put my laser pointer on here. All this right here, this is the black underlayment or black felt. Right through there. All this. So this is literally falling off the house. Here is a picture of me grabbing it and crushing it with my fingers. I'm not a big man. I'm 5'9", 180, right? And I can just crush this stuff. It's a complete total failure. This is kind of akin if you have ever lived on the coast and water gets in a balcony or something, all that steel in there, and then big chunks come off, and then you get assessed to replace all the balconies. That's the same type of, it's the same scenario we have going on here. All right, next, this is a 20 gauge wire, otherwise known as a 1-coat stucco wire. This is the same as the 17 gauge, but a little bit thinner and a little bit flimsier. It's typically used on the 1-coat stucco applications and has a little bit smaller openings than that 17 gauge. And well, it's not as strong either. Okay. This is really the only type of wire that's used for a 1-coat stucco app. And the wire is made specifically for that. The 1-coat wire also has smaller spacing between the holes. It's about an inch or so compared to 1.5 inches that you find on that 3-coat wire we were looking at. So we have two pictures here showing this 1-coat wire. The one on the right I thought was really beneficial, because you can see how it's pre-furred, if you will, right? Furred out, it's pre-furred for you. You don't have to do anything. You can see how those little bent pieces hold that lath off of the wall just a little bit. It helps, when you're applying the stucco for that stucco to get up inside all that and spread real good. If you're using a wire or something like that that's not pre-furred, they do make nails that help fur it out, but that's more work, and people are typically using wires like this to make the process faster, quicker, which means it's also less expensive when you spend less time there, right?
So, John, I'm sorry for interrupting. So
Cool.
the picture on the left, that's also 20 gauge?
Correct.
I'm not seeing a difference between that one
Oh,
and the honeycomb one.
no, you're right. That one does look like the 17, doesn't it?
No,
Yeah, that
I
looks
don't
like the
know.
17. Yeah, you're right. From here it does.
Okay.
That honeycomb. They gave me these two pictures. I didn't put those in there.
Of course you did not.
I wasn't there on that one.
So you're saying the other one, the previous slide, is better than this one? well,
There are those.
no, keep going back. Those. So this 17 gauge wire, is that better than the 20 gauge?
Yeah, the lower the number, the thicker.
Okay.
The more coats, the
Because
better.
I'm just looking at this and I'm going, well, gosh, that 20 gauge one that was, on the right, that looks a lot thicker than this 17 gauge. But now when I'm looking close to that picture on the left,
Yeah,
that looks like the same pattern as, maybe they got the slides messed up.
It's possible. The big takeaway is there's different wires for the different systems. If you're using a one coat system, two coat system, three coat system, the more layers you add, the better it's going to perform, as long as it's applied properly, which it never is. Right? If you can apply the base coat and let it cure, apply the brown coat or the scratch coat and let it cure, and then the final coat and let it cure, it performs very, very, very well. And I will bring that up because that I did put in here when we get a little further ahead of some studies they did right here in my area. And I am friends with one of the PhDs that was on this study where they used actual ASTM flow racks and standards to measure the performance of the whole process, the first coat, second coat, third coat, all the way through. And they proved, well, I'm getting excited and getting ahead of myself, but they proved that if it's applied properly with cure times and all that, it performs extremely well, even without paint. Unfortunately, it's just never applied right in the field. You just don't see it.
How long is cure time?
As long as possible. If you get a week out of it, that'd be fantastic. It'll also depend on the one coat or two coat or three coat, and you always got to follow that manufacturer, how they, what they recommend.
Okay. I don't mean to be asking so many questions.
No, that's cool. That's what we're here for, right? This one here, it gets real interesting too when you get on stuff that's over your head, right? This is a high rib lav. This type of wire is intended for things like ceilings and soffits and those kind of things, intended to hold that stucco, that plaster in place while minimizing the fallouts. Fallouts are just small amounts of concrete falling out as they apply it, and they taste awful. You look at it and it looks like an expanded metal lath, but it's a lot more rigid because of those grooves that run down the length of the wire. The picture on the right shows the ridges in good detail, and that's how it's installed on the ceiling. This is normal expanded metal lath. This particular type of lath is a much smaller pattern in the wire itself. It allows that stucco to bond to it really, really well. And it can also be used when you're making small repairs, transitions, you have uneven surfaces, stuff like that. I have been told that you guys don't use this very much, but this right here is all that we see. I'm in Central Florida, and that's all that we use in this area. Nobody uses that, what we call everything else chicken wire. Nobody uses those other things. Then,
is that due to the humidity in the air, the moisture?
that we use it more often? I would follow the money, and if it's faster, then you spend less on labor. This goes up real quick, and you push all that stucco up into those little ridges, and it catches it. It's really, really fast.
Got it.
As opposed to really big holes that might be a little harder.
Okay.
But this is all that we use here. This is a cool looking little product. A fiberglass wire, typically referred to as just mesh. It's an alternative to metal, and it has like furring. It's one of those self-furred type of things too. It's code compliant, and can be used instead of that metal. Easier to cut, lightweight, doesn't cut you either. So it makes it a lot more user-friendly. What I have heard is its availability is tougher to get because of its unavailability, and it's probably why you don't see it a whole lot. This image, they're using it on an AMSV application, adhered masonry stone veneer. So it can be used for all kinds of different stuff, different applications. Good thing is, again, it's simple, easy to cut and apply. Use a utility knife, scissors, whatever. Attach it with staples or nails, whatever the manufacturer tells you. Now, this is one I used to get a lot of questions about all the time. It's architectural foam accents. So it's yet just another layer, and this is extremely popular in more modern construction. Again, I like the visual so you see what it looks like, because this is what we're all used to looking at, right? The finished product. And I like being able to go back and go, oh, it's just a chunk of foam, right, with that mesh on it to help hold the application to it, stucco to it. But stucco foam, the cool thing is it can be used to completely change the outside architectural look of a house without having to make structural modifications, right? It can change the whole home from, something average to looking pretty freaking cool, right? You can create trims and accents where you want, where there was nothing there before. It also works really well if you need to, you're trying to provide some curb appeal. All right. If you're a flipper or something like that, this is a pretty cool option, to inexpensive one too, to add really cool curb appeal, differentiate yourself from everybody else in the neighborhood. Sometimes houses just get too flat, right? Old school painted block, it's just old. So these are good optional accents that, and I'm sure you guys see a lot of these things, right? Foam is pretty darn affordable. It's pretty cheap. Again, you're not structurally modifying. It's not wood. It's not metal. It's just foam, right? Bad thing is we just went through these storms and we had a tree fall and it smashed the whole stucco, the whole foam cap of our wall in the back, and it's just it doesn't offer any structurability, so we got to fix it, but at least it can be fixed. Now, stucco, this is the previous branch. This is my wall in the back. So you see, it's not a structural type of thing. It's just an accent. It looks really cool when it's in good shape. So it won't be as sturdy as wood or metal or anything like that. It's going to be prone to some damages. Stuff happens, but it can be fixed. What was I going to say? A lot of the foam now, you're going to have some type of like a fiberglass mesh on top of that, so there's something for the stucco product to stick to. But even though you have that, remember the stucco type of application is brittle and stiff, so it will break and dent and crack and that kind of thing. So you want to just make sure you keep water out of it. The next layer is what they call the scratch coat. The scratch coat is part of the base coat, and depending whether you're doing 1, 2, or 3 coat system, and they apply that with a little hawk and a trowel, and then something called a scarifier. I'll show you a picture of next. They spread all that stucco cement all over the wall. And again, depending on 1, 2, 3, the thicknesses will vary depending on what kind of system you're doing, but you'll spread it all on there like that, and then come through with the scarifier. And it's like a really cool back scratcher, right? You make those horizontal lines, and that gives it something for the next coat to adhere to, right? It makes it a little bit stronger, more durable. So that picture is a really good one to show you how that's done. Very simple process here. Then, after you've allowed that to cure, it'd be cool if you can get a week out of it. Sometimes you get same day application, and it's just not going to perform as well if it can't cure as well. But getting a week out of it would be fantastic. And again, depending on the product, maybe there's been additives added to it or something like that. So there's always variables. The answer is always it depends, right? But this coat here is applied using some of those same techniques, like a hawk and a trowel. However, instead of using a scarifier, they use something called a derby. Okay, a derby is really, it's like a 3 foot long trowel. All right. And it's got a couple, it'll have two handles because it's so big. And they use that derby to push that cement up and around and make sure that that coat is even and uniform throughout the wall. And again, depending on what kind of system, the thickness will vary a little bit. But this usually takes a little bit more time to cure now. And if you can get a couple weeks of cure time, you'll fare much better, if you will, right? So in this picture, you can see these guys are applying that coat to the house. It's kind of well, you can see what I mean by those accents kind of tending to be a little bit more of an aesthetic thing around that window, so it's not completely flat. Now that's wood, but you can use the stucco or the foam. I'm sorry, you can use the foam accents around there. Would really help bring that update that wall a bit, because that's kind of boring, right? So then you have a finish coat, okay, on a 3-coat process. This will be the final step and known as the finish coat, top coat, whatever you want to call that. And that is applied with a hawk and a trowel, like everything else. And you can customize this a whole bunch of different ways, a lot of different techniques. So it's really your personal preference what you want to do. There's two main types of materials used in finishes. Again, the synthetic and the hard coat, which is going to be, the hard coat is your traditional stuff that you see everywhere. That's what you'll see throughout your marketplace. Again, advantages and disadvantages to both, but the final coat on here, you can do all kinds of cool things with. So here's just a few examples of different textures, whatever look you're trying to achieve. Really up to you or your contractor, what kind of look you're going for. Some textures work better to get an overall look and feel. Like, you're looking for something smooth, you're looking for a Mediterranean kind of look. You can do that too, right? Really depends on what you want. And this is how all the stuff comes together. So kind of a recap here is a diagram. I love the visual aids illustrating all these layers we kind of looked at and how they all come together. So first, again, we have our wall framing. And ladies, what do we call those? Studs. That's right. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate that. Then you have the sheathing. And ladies, what do we call that? Sheathing, just sheathing, nothing more. This sheeting here is plywood or OSB, and that's typically what you're going to see in your marketplace there. Then you have your WRB, your water resistant barrier. Again, there's different products out there. You rarely see felt paper stuff anymore. Typically, it's synthetics that go on there. Then you have your lath, and then your scratch coat, brown coat, finish coat. Simple system there. This picture, again, just gives you a good representation on how all this stuff comes together. Now, what I want to do is show you a real short video of the whole process that we kind of went over. And I may not be the best storyteller. This will help, right? I don't expect anybody here to go out and start a stucco business, but after this, I think you have a little bit of psychological safety because like it helps make everything sink in, and it's only 7 minutes. So let's check this out real quick. Now, please play. Okay, this worked when I tested it earlier, and it'll be very embarrassing if it won't work now. Where's the teenager when you need him? Huh. Well, she won't play. Advance. I'm open to advice here.
When you send out
Okay.
when you send this out to us, would that be so we could watch it?
I'm keeping my fingers crossed. This literally worked. Like I tried everything, made sure it worked before I got on.
No, but I mean, when you send us the stuff in an email, do you think we'll be able to watch it then?
I'm going to say yes and cross my fingers.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, we'll get out of here early. Then it's all right because I don't know why it won't play.
Maybe try it at the end again.
Yeah, we can. Yeah. Well, I wonder if I escape out of this. Oh, here we go. All right.
Building the stucco wall. For centuries, stucco has proven to be one of the most enduring, versatile, and weather-resistant exterior wall finishes available. And with its variety of colors and textures, stucco continues to be one of the most popular wall systems. Stucco can be applied over standard wood frame walls in a 3-coat process and over masonry and poured concrete walls in a 2-coat application. Before starting your project, check local building codes for wall assembly and moisture barrier requirements in your area. Weather-resistant stucco walls require the use of 2 layers of grade D waterproof building paper over the wall sheathing, including plywood, OSB, exterior gypsum board, and concrete board before the application of the base coat stucco. When attaching the waterproof building paper, vertical seams should be overlapped by 6 inches or more, and horizontal seams should be overlapped by 4 inches in shingle fashion. The building paper should also extend 16 inches around all corners. Once the water-resistant building paper is in place, all trim accessories should be installed. Trim accessories can be cut to size using metal snips. Cut edges are often very sharp, so always wear gloves when working with these materials. A weep screed is a typical accessory required by code. Weep screeds are installed along the bottom edges to allow any water that has entered the wall to escape. Casing beads should be installed to neatly terminate stucco at the end of the wall. Casing beads also act as a guide to help maintain a consistent stucco thickness. Casing beads for a 3-coat system should be 3/4 of an inch thick. Casing beads for use in a 2-coat system over masonry or concrete should be 1/2 inch thick. Then, galvanized expanded metal lath or 1-inch woven wire stucco netting is installed over the entire surface, overlapping by 1 inch on the horizontal seams and 2 inches on the vertical seams. Galvanized nails or staples should be used every 6 inches, both vertically and horizontally. Make sure that the nails or staples penetrate the studs a minimum of 1 inch. The lath or stucco netting should also extend 16 inches around all corners. If the base coat stucco is applied to a clean, unpainted concrete or masonry surface, waterproof building paper and metal lath are not required. Then, control joints should be placed to create wall panels no larger than 144 square feet, keeping the panels as square as possible. Stucco will shrink as it hardens and cures. Control joints help reduce the potential for shrinkage cracking. Expansion joints are required anywhere there are existing wall expansion joints and at inside corners and changes in substrate. Expansion joints are designed to allow for the expansion and contraction of the stucco wall panels with changes in temperature. Corner trim should be used on all outside edges to protect the exposed stucco and to provide clean, finished lines. Now that the substrate is properly prepared, it is ready for the base coat stucco application. Quikrete base coat stucco and Quikrete base coat stucco with water stop
Well,
are recommended for use in a traditional 3-coat system over wood sheathing and as the base for a 2-coat application over masonry or concrete. These pre-blended stuccos are extremely workable for hand-applied stucco applications and have the high bond strength required for a successful project. Mix the base coat stucco to a workable consistency. The proper consistency is achieved when the stucco will hang on a trowel held at a 90-degree angle. Stucco that is mixed too wet will sag. Stucco that is mixed too dry will not adhere properly to the metal lap. One bag of 80-pound base coat stucco will cover about 27 square feet at 3/8 of an inch thick. Using a square trowel held at a 45-degree angle, apply the base coat stucco using firm trowel pressure to force the stucco into the lap. Work from the bottom of the wall up and apply at a thickness of about 3/8 of an inch over the entire area. Then, using a straight edge or darby, screed the stucco to a uniform depth of 3/8 of an inch thick. Once the stucco has become thumbprint hard, scratch horizontal grooves 1/8 of an inch deep into the base coat across the entire area with a raking tool. This is why this step is commonly referred to as the scratch coat. Allow the scratch coat to cure for 24 to 48 hours. Keep the surface of the stucco damp with a fine water mist. This step will help reduce shrinkage cracking, especially in hot, dry conditions. Now, mix and apply another 3/8 inch layer of base coat stucco directly to the scratch coat. This step is called the brown coat. Using a straight border darby, screed the brown coat surface to a true, even 3/8 inch thickness. Fill any surface voids with additional base coat. The total combined base coat depth should be 3/4 of an inch thick. As soon as the stucco has lost its sheen, float the surface uniformly. Then cure the base coat with a fine water mist for 24 to 48 hours. For 2-coat applications over masonry block walls and poured concrete walls, the scratch coat step is eliminated from the process. Simply dampen the wall, apply the brown coat, then screed and float the surface to uniform 3/8 inch thickness. Now that the base coat is complete, Quikrete finish coat stucco can be used to provide numerous decorative color and texture options for your stucco wall. Finish coat stucco is available in both white and gray formulations and can be combined with more than 20 standard Quikrete stucco and mortar colors. Popular textures such as heavy lace, light lace, dash, sand float, and smooth finishes are easy to achieve with a little practice. Working from the bottom of the wall to the top, apply a consistent 1/8 inch thick coating of finish coat stucco. Then use a whisk brush to lightly dash finish coat stucco onto the wall. And then use a trowel to knock down and flatten the stucco. If you prefer a heavier texture, first spread the finish coat stucco in a thin application to achieve good color coverage, and then double back with a heavier, uneven application. Once the heavy coat begins to harden, knock the finish down with a trowel, creating a heavy lace finish. If a smooth finish is your preference, simply use a trowel or sponge float in a circular motion. It is important to complete the entire wall in one application. This will help limit any color inconsistencies from batch to batch. Then keep the surface damp for several days by applying a fine water mist.
no, there you go. That wasn't too long. That was pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it was.
Cool. Thank you so much. All right. Next, what we're going to do, we'll do some flashing details, but I am told we have to follow rules and take a 10-minute break. So I have 2:55. You want to be back here by 3:05?
Yes.
We'll finish this out. All right. Thank you. See
Thank you.
40 minutes. Okay. 3:05. We are well on our way. Just a tad over halfway. All right. So now that we've kind of looked at and reviewed various layers of the stucco, the installation process, let's talk about some of the flashings that are used. In that video, it's obviously an older video because they're using non-synthetics and using all metal. Typically in our area, we're seeing mostly plastic nowadays. But anyway, flashing details are going to be critical for diverting water. Okay, water is coming. We know that. And what the only thing we can do with it when it gets here is to manage it, right? So the first thing is going to be something you're going to hear inspectors call out all the time. It's called a weep screed. All right. What is a weep screed and how is it used? Well, a weep screed is a piece of flashing that runs along the bottom of the walls that holds the stucco in place, keeps it from, falling down the wall, and helps wicks incidental moisture out of the holes at the bottom, at the base of that flashing. It kind of hangs over the sill plate a little bit. The sill plate is that the bottom piece of the wall of a frame wall. You have your studs, right? And that bottom plate. So it's going to terminate an inch or below that sill plate, and then any water, incidental water that does get behind it, weeps out the bottom. Pretty simple process. I always like to mention during an inspection that water follows all paths and gravity. Okay, gravity is pretty predictable, maintenance free, so the majority of water will flow down and then out the weep screed. You'll even see this on brick or stone. If you notice those small holes that are drilled at the base of brick or stone, that's for the same process, right? If water gets in, it manages it and it gives it a place to get out. Pretty simple, right? All right, so let's look at this with a little bit more detail. So the weep screed is actually installed directly to that sheathing. And then you'll see the felt paper or the synthetic, usually the synthetic is on top of that in a shingle fashion, right? Then the lath is added and we see whether it's 1 coat, 2 coat, 3 coat stucco on top of that. So if water gets through the stucco, it hits the moisture barrier, travels down the wall, hits those exit holes in the weep screed and off the wall. And this is important to note, actually on a wood frame wall, that 4-inch clearance, like you're seeing in the picture on the right there. You don't ever want to see stucco terminating below grade, okay, on newer construction. I understand, I want to say it was 2001-ish when it showed up in the Florida building code that says you cannot take it down below grade on a wood frame house. So anything before that, okay, it just is what it is. But you want to see that clearance above grade. You don't want it to, all you're going to do is encourage moisture intrusion, wicks up the behind it, and it also provides a hidden travel plane for termites and stuff. So you want to try to see some clearance between the stucco and the ground. That photo on the right there shows that weep screed, what it typically looks like. And you can see the holes, right? You can see how water, yeah. Now, yeah, there we go. See, sometimes it's just the right picture that helps it all sink in.
Well, what's the picture below that looks like it has a string coming out? What am I looking at there?
Trash. And we shouldn't have a huge gap like this. Oh, that might just be shadow, but yeah, that's just trash. I guess when they were pulling string, getting things straight and flat.
But I mean, what is that? Is that like the ground, or I mean, what is that up against there? I mean,
Oh, that'll be your slab or foundation wall.
okay, it's just rough. That's why I didn't think it was the slab.
Yeah, could be. Well, it'll be depending on what kind of foundation you have. It'll be the foundation wall or slab combo right there. A little rough because it was just framed in and doesn't have to look pretty.
Yeah.
Now this one I know you're all familiar with. Kick out flashing. I'm sure everybody here has seen this called out in reports, right? It could end up actually in an inspection report in a couple sections. It could be on the wall section, right? Or you might find it on the roof section, depends. Either way, it doesn't make any difference. You can see it's associated with a roof and the wall, right? So it can be relevant to both, but kick out flashing is also known as a diverter flashing. It's a special type of flashing that diverts rainwater away from the siding and into a gutter or just off of the wall entirely, right? When it's installed properly, it's a great way to keep the water from getting into the building assembly, the wall assembly, okay? Kick-out flashing should be installed in all areas where you have a roof line that terminates against an exterior wall, like the pictures you're looking at here. And FYI, this has always been a requirement, okay? In other words, it has never been code to funnel water into a wall assembly, which is exactly what sidewall flashing does without a kick-out. And I will show you a great picture coming up here of exactly what I'm talking about. But the picture on the left does a really great job of showing you where it's needed. Okay, so if a roof terminating against the wall, you should have that kick out flashing present. Okay, even if or if you ever see those dark stains coming down the side of a wall, you know, close to the roof, that's a good indicator that you don't have proper diversion of water. And this, I'll show you this right now. Those dark stains that you ever notice I'm talking about, that's
Yeah.
here. This image is something I took of new construction. Now, and that's not even rainwater or anything like that. That was simply dew, okay? When the moisture in the air, high moisture, high humidity hits that dew point and it runs off of the house. So this is first thing in the morning. And I just thought it was a great representation. You can visibly see it and feel it, taste it if you want, but where the water goes. So that's why that location would have a kick out to keep it off of the wall, because otherwise that's exactly where the water goes. But that was a great graphic right there. Now I'm going to show you some images here of examples of damage that can occur from not having proper kick out. When that water is not being properly diverted, it can get into what they call the wall assembly, all right? And then bad things happen. Many times this goes on and it's not discovered until it's, you know, you have some significant damage and it's concealed. You don't even notice it at first. So sometimes you get to a house and it looks fine and it's not, because the damages and stuff are concealed. So the cost to remedy is going to be expensive, and especially if you have some structural damage, especially if you have structural damage, that's going to require engineering design, right? And you're talking about wind loads and all kinds of stuff that will be repaired to today's standards, not yesteryear's or the year it was constructed or anything like that. If you end up with a mold problem, termite problem, all those kind of things, right? So that's why it's imperative to get this stuff right, and you hear it all the time in reports. It's probably one of the most critical pieces of flashing on a roof. But the picture you're seeing here is what they call step flashing, like you're taking a step. There are multiple pieces just shaped like an L, and they're installed in a shingle type pattern. All right, this is another way to do it, as opposed to one long single piece or a bunch of smaller pieces. And it kind of extends down, and then on top of that is counter flashing, because remember that's L shape, it goes up the wall, then that counter flashing goes over top of that to prevent water from getting behind that, and then it's sealed, right? I was going to say something else here. Of course, that it's going to be galvanized aluminum, maybe sometimes copper, but only those rich real estate agents get the copper ones. Usually galvanized or aluminum. All right, this is an example of flashing installed on the face of that exterior wall. Now, it can be before the stucco application or over the stucco, like on an addition or something. Sometimes it is face applied and then sealed, right? Sometimes regulated. Regulated in, you say? Yes. Let's take a look at what a reglet is. So just in case Alex Trebek ever asks you.
Absolutely.
It's simply a saw cut. And let me get my laser again here. You see this little, right, that cut right there? So the metal is inserted and then it's sealed along here. So these are basically the same, this is the same picture. One's a closer upper. So it's scored in, cut in, inserted, and then sealed along the top. That's a reglet.
So that's angling out.
It goes straight in and then straight down. And
No,
then,
but I mean from the going up. Yeah, from there to the reglet. Is that angling out? Is that what I'm seeing? It's
well, this is just going uphill, up the roof. It's a chimney. This gives you the better macro version. So it's just a block chimney. And it goes.
oh, okay, I see.
So this height will be the same height back here. You just can't see it from that angle.
Got it.
That's it. That's just a perfect example of a reglet on a chimney. I'm sure everybody here has heard about some of the negative reputations that stucco has. It's developed over the last decade or so, but we have to ask the question if that is deserved. Sorry, I forgot my arrows. That's your reglet. The simple answer is that a bad reputation deserved is no. But let's dive a little bit deeper into this and let you see for yourself, make your own judgment, either positive or negative. A lot of people are finding themselves in a position of having to pay a large amount of money to remediate stucco homes. This means having the stucco ripped off, torn off, the structure repaired, any underlying damage, okay, structure, termites, mold, etc. Remediate those type of things. So it's not uncommon to find rotted sheathing and stuff like that, and even structural damage when it's been going on for a long time and you can't see it, or when the stucco is not installed properly and it's not maintained and water gets in and bad things happen. You can imagine, and I'm sure you all have seen, people having to open up their wallets, and it's a big deal. So let's look at some of the pros and the cons. Rule number one, bottom line is the better you caulk, seal, and paint, the better the house is going to perform because all cracks leak. This is what I mentioned earlier. Right after the 2004 debacle, where we had, remember, I'm in Central Florida, we had 3 storms back to back to back. And right after that, UCF, University of Central Florida, their constructability lab did a study. And a good friend of ours from church was one of the PhDs on that study, which is how I even found out about it. We were talking about it. And make a long story short, I have the study if you want to read it, but they determined that cracks as small as 1/64th of an inch allowed water penetration and water accumulation at the base of those walls. 1/64th of an inch. There's 2 pieces of paper. Okay. So I know it, a lot of you may look at hairline cracks and stuff like that and call them aesthetic. They're not aesthetic. When it gets wet and the sun hits it, you have that second law of thermodynamics, hot to cold, more or less, high pressure or low pressure. Water is driven in those cracks. That's how it just facilitates a faster penetration. So the better you caulk, seal, and paint, the better the house is going to perform. So what is the other problem? Well, it's poor construction that causes these problems. Okay. Hopefully somebody's smiling. So stucco is porous. Water will wick in, get through the stucco cracks. And so the water must be managed properly, okay? Any water that does migrate through the stucco could get through the stucco, could get through the house wrap and everything, and then damage the studs. And that would be tragic, right? So, does that mean that all stucco homes are doomed? Of course not. Not at all. Stucco is a very versatile, I think it's a beautiful product. Of course, I've grown up with it here in Central Florida. It provides good protection. It lasts a very, very long time if it has been applied properly. All right. Following manufacturer's installation instructions and then maintained. All right. Stucco is a fantastic product. And we're talking something that'll last 50, 75 years, right? It's all about application and maintenance, bottom line. So here are a few stucco problems found out in the wild. Bottom line, I know, right? You don't want to be on the receiving end. Someone's upset when this happens to somebody, they're hurt financially, emotionally, everything else, and they're looking to blame somebody. So this is why the agent inspector relationship is so important. We've got to work together. But
and that, you know, that's from outside in?
Correct. That's where the water source is, right? Especially in the middle of that.
Uh-huh. I mean, it's not like a indoor plumbing leak. So it's not in, out. It's definitely out going in.
A plumbing leak or something like that, you would typically have a source point and it gets bigger and it'll have a circular or conical shape and it's confined, right? It will travel a little bit, but it'll have a pattern that screams where it's coming from. This one, especially if you look down here, it looks like fungus among us all the way across. So it goes all the way across and then this entire area. And there's no penetrations here or that we can see anyway. There may be a vent or something in there, who knows? But this is application right here and lack of maintenance, right? This here could be one of the houses I worked on as a kid. I'll never forget one day, me and this guy, Buddy, were working and Buddy knocked over this bucket of wet stucco all over me. It totally screwed up the whole day. And then later the foreman comes around and asks me what the heck happened. The house looked like crap. I just told him the truth. Buddy kicked a bucket and I got plastered. I work on this humor.
Yeah, you do.
So appreciate the laughs. On this house, the water was not managed and the underlying wood structure was not properly protected. I will tell you that there is no perfect installation. I'd go as far as to say is none of them are perfect, but most systems are just not installed with the proper thicknesses, the cure time, critical flashing details, things like that. We just looked at some of those missing kickout flashing pictures, right? You saw what kind of repercussions come with that. Any breaches in the envelope allows water penetration. And then if you sustain that, okay, especially when you get 19-20% or more moisture content, well, that supports fungus among us and damage to the studs, right, ladies? It causes all that breakdown, deterioration, damage, etc. So every issue we just highlighted are all related to installation and maintenance. It's not the product itself. In other words, the job is only as good as the stud applying it and the stud maintaining it. So let's now debunk some myths about stucco because there are a lot of them out there. The first one, buying a home with exterior stucco is just asking for trouble. The biggest difference between stucco that poses a hazard and stucco that adds value and beauty to the home is whether it was installed and maintained properly. That's it. So claiming that buying a home with stucco is just asking for problems is not, it's simply not true. It's all about installation and maintenance. Myth number 2, stucco is difficult to maintain. The answer to answer that, we kind of got to discuss maintenance practices. Stucco is going to need to be checked regularly for cracks because it happens. All right. And then the root cause of that cracking has to be addressed. Once the cause is determined, you can repair it like right away. Because cracking can indicate, you can get cracks that indicate a major problem like a foundation settlement or something like that. Or it could be simple stuff like shrinkage, right? I don't have a funny slide or anything here for that. Homeowners often, you'll see them attempt to fix their crack problems with an impermeable paint. And important to keep in mind that stucco should always be painted with a permeable paint that allows water vapor to escape, right? It's a porous product. If you hung a plastic bag on the house, it could not breathe. It would only trap moisture. Same type of thing with paint. So sometimes you'll hear somebody talk about putting a full, what do you call that? That type of paint that it does not breathe at all. And they'd say it's going to keep all the moisture out. Well, there will be a defect somewhere and moisture will get in and it can't get out. And kind of like akin to the old EIFS systems, right? Maintenance requires regular inspection. This gives you that opportunity to spot it before things get, overwhelming, right? When you hire a professional, they'll know exactly what to look for and help. It can always help you zero in on problems. So even if you have somebody come to your personal house and take a walk around and take a look, that is a good proactive practice, like any system in your home, right? It's always beneficial to be proactive versus reactive. So small cracks are common. That's going to happen. And when you get those cracks, especially larger ones or out of plane ones, out of rotational ones, that's when it might be indicating something serious. Okay. Hairline cracks are more shrinkage related when they're out of plane, rotational, things like that. Those are the ones that are the OMGs, that there could be something bigger happening. And to simply repair those kind of cracks is basically kicking the can down the road, concealing the problem, and it doesn't solve any problems, right? So if you're having a problem with your foundation where it's getting excessive movement and it's likely going to affect multiple systems throughout the house, right? You shouldn't see just a few small stucco cracks and think your foundation's failing either, right? When you see cracks, you want to look for corroborating evidences of foundation movement. So bottom line is, don't get scared when you're seeing these little hairline cracks. That stuff is going to happen, but we want to maintain them. Because remember, 1/64 of an inch will allow water penetration. Third myth, stucco does not have a high aesthetic value. Now, this again, I think is based on probably an inferior installation or even some obsolete patterns. You know what I'm talking about? And the last one, all stucco homes pose the same problems. Since we know that professional installation is key, right? Let's ask then, what's the difference between a professional installation and a subpar installation?
Right.
And it's really simple. The key is the labor that performs the work. And as with most systems in your house, finding a qualified professional familiar with local codes and conditions makes all of the difference in the world. The easiest example is we have these storms and you see roofers come in from other states that do things differently. Right now, you know what I'm talking about. So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. If you guys, and I'm sure everybody has their list of guys and gals that they trust, man, hang on to those lists because labor is very hard to find. But
a quick question on those, just very slight hairline cracks that come. I mean, you can't get, just more cosmetic looking than anything. I know you said, hey, get those repaired, but how do you repair one of those very hairline, cracks? It's just like with our soil, our shifting soil here in San Antonio.
Yeah, there's a lot of products. I've used a couple of them from Sherwin-Williams. And of course, you can probably get them at Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards. There's also standalone Sherwin-Williams, um, what do you call them? Satellite offices, whatever. You can
Mhm.
walk in there, and of course, most of those guys in there have a lot more experience and knowledge on specific products than you might find at a Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that. So walking right in there saying, hey, take pictures and show them, look, I got simple hairline cracks, and they're going to look at them, look for how big they are. Are they rotational? Are they out of plane of each other? If they're just simple shrinkage type cracks, stuff that happens, there's products in, I forget what the name of it, that I've Crackcrete, or it doesn't matter. Ask the Sherwin-Williams guy and they'll give you the right one. And it's so simple. Like I literally smear it in with my hand into the cracks, because you want it to blend in with the rest of the stucco.
Uh-huh.
Smear it in, let it dry and paint it. Done.
So that's it. Yeah. So as long as you have the same color paint. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of
Well,
course, everything fades in the Texas sun. So
exactly. Everything fades. So, but discoloration, blemish is better than water getting
true.
in, because it can't get better over time. It can only get worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, maintenance is pretty critical. All right. Some of the problems with EIFS, that's that synthetic stucco stuff. It started out with a really, really bad rep, like we mentioned in the 80s, 90s, those kind of things. Most of that was incorrect installation. Excuse me. Oh gosh. That can, water penetration leads to, of course, wood rot, sometimes structural. You get the fungus among us, you get termites, those kind of things. So that's why it gets so much of that bad reputation, was the installation. The systems nowadays are pretty dang good. It's a good product when it's installed right. But if it's wrong, and it's not maintained, it will allow water in, and you have all these problems that we've been talking about. So you may be thinking, how do I know if the home that you're looking at or showing is EIFS or hard coat? How do you identify an EIFS? Well, there's a few different things you can do. And one of them, the first one, is going to be the touch test, right? That's going to be like the easiest thing that you can do. It's just simply touching the material with your bare hand. And when you touch the wall, if it's hard, the regular typical hard coat stucco, it's going to feel like concrete. If it's EIFS, it's going to feel more like hard foam, if you will, right? That's like the easiest way. Hard foam or like solid concrete block, right? You'll know. You can't miss it.
Okay.
Go ahead and knock on it, like knocking on a door. If it
Quick
hurts,
question. I put it in the chat before, but it's more appropriate here. Do they have a tendency to do more synthetic stucco along the coastline?
that's a good question. What's popular along coastlines? We don't have in Central Florida, at least, the EIFS applications are concentrated on commercial buildings.
Mm-hmm.
All we ever see is hard coat systems, whether you're on the coast or inland. Either way, I can't.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, I do a lot of relocation business, and they service all of the US. And so one of the questions they always ask is this synthetic stucco or
Yeah.
whatever stucco. And then they send out a stucco person. And I thought I heard somebody state that they do more of the synthetic stucco, like in Corpus, the around the coastline because of the salt water. Do you know?
I wouldn't know specifically in
Okay.
your areas.
Okay.
Because of the insulation value, it's desirable in harsher climates.
Mm-hmm.
The only time I ever see stuck, well, I have two particular subdivisions I could take you to with EIFs. Everything else is hard coat stucco. In Florida anyway. So one thing that you can do also, if they would accept it, you can always take something like a faceplate off a receptacle or something like that and look inside that penetration. And like if you see stucco applied directly to the substrate, you can tell the difference between that and if it's the thick foam with the mesh and that stucco product on top of it. So it's just it's an easy way to ID it. If you're just confused, can't tell, that's one way. Typically though, just touching it, knocking on it, those are tried and true, easy ways to do that, to ID it. Now for the stucco inspection process. So here's a few steps. First, we start with a visual inspection of the system, the exterior, to determine what kind of condition it's in, looking for installation compliance things in certain areas. Now, an inspector is first going to walk it completely around the house and look for telltale signs of moisture, usually stains. Efflorescence is a big sign. Cracks, improper flashing or missing flashing. Sometimes it's stucco that goes below grade on a wood frame house, right? Those are all things that are going to really stick out. Remember we talked about the clearance down on
Right.
on wood frame homes. Masonry houses, you can take it all the way down to the dirt, no problem. The termites won't get up behind it, behind hard coat stucco, right? The next is a visual inspection of the interior, okay? Sometimes, kind of like a roof leak. Sometimes we're on the roof and there's nothing wrong, but you're in the attic and son of a gun, there's the water coming through. So sometimes you don't see the issue on the outside, you only see it on the inside. So we look for that interior manifestation of an exterior source, right? So if I'm inspecting the interior of the house and I'm seeing evidence of water penetration through the wall, at a window, something like that, it's going to be a big red flag for me, especially if there's no plumbing in that area, right? If we're looking at a wall around a window, that's going to tell me pretty quick that that window may not be flashed properly, and it wasn't installed properly. The moisture barrier may not be done properly. Don't know, but we probably usually have an installation issue there. The next step is using infrared. And infrared is awesome because it will see things that your eyeballs cannot. All right. We'll go around the interior and look for any anomalies. That's a thermal imaging scan. I'll show you a picture here in a sec. That's what we do on every inspection. It is extremely valuable. With that, you will find things that no other human being can. Okay. If you're not familiar with infrared, IR basically sees, air quotes, temperature. Okay. So something that is wet is a different color than the dry thing next to it. And I'll show you a picture here. Here we go. So we can use the cameras to scan over whole walls, whole ceilings, go through a house pretty quickly. And we were looking for those anomalies that would lead us, to trying to identify where the penetration points can be. If you can see, if you look out the window, there's a chimney. and on top there was a temporary tar repair. Tar is a great product, but it dries and cracks it with UV exposure. So it was a very temporary. Water got in, and you couldn't, you look here with your eyeball, you can't see anything, but the camera sees it. So we see there's a point source, and gravity pulls it down. So we knew what was going on there. That was coming from the chimney. Another one is surface moisture testing of areas suspect. Okay, once we see that thermal anomaly, that camera picks up on signs and shows the weird colors, then we go to using the moisture meter in the pinless mode, so it's non-intrusive, it doesn't do any damage. Moisture meter, run that around, and that detects moisture below the surface, all right, into that material about 3/4 of an inch. And we're looking for, again, anomalies. If I go over something metal like a screw or a bolt or a flashing or something like that, it'd give me a false positive. So this part of the inspection process, putting together this puzzle, trying to find that anomaly and compare it to known dry areas around there. That would be the next step, using the moisture meters help us identify those kind of things. And if I find something in the scan mode, then I will follow up with the pin mode, make 2 tiny little pricks in whatever we're looking at to confirm. With the pin mode, there's nothing in between those pins but the drywall that you're poking, or the piece of wood that you're poking, or whatever. So I know that I'm not picking up something metal underneath it, behind it. Invasive inspections, now those you only do with a real professional qualified to do something like this, because it does involve drilling holes, and you have long leads that you poke into those holes that go into the interior wall cavity. So you're measuring moisture content deep inside that wall, right? Using that moisture meter to do that. Those are some pretty deep holes, but patching them it's no big deal. But that would be a much more involved process, and things that they do when issues are serious and you're going to court type of things when you get into that. But it's a whole lot easier than cutting a large hole. In other words, drilling 2 small holes it is a lot easier and less destructive. Okay. There are certifications for doing stuff like that. EDI, which is the Exterior Design Institute, they are the most reputable entity that I know of that offers third-party inspectors a certification program. It's Exterior Design Institute. I think it's .org. If you ever need somebody, they'll have a list that you can look at and find somebody in your area if you have to go that route. Depending on how big a problem a certain house is, depends on how many places are tested, how much destructive testing is done, and so forth. So it can be all over the board if it's one particular small area, or you're building a court case. So it can be all over the place, and it's obviously going to cost more than a home inspector at a few $100. So there's an example on the left there. That's a real good example of the size holes. They're pretty small. You'll see those kind of test holes, and then when you're done, they patch them up, and you can hardly even tell they're there, right? But that's, in other words, it's not the end of the world. You don't have to drill large holes, cut out large things to figure out what it looks like inside. Those are destructive type of investigations. So what I think we ought to do now is look at some of those red flags that might come up during an inspection and might lead you to consider doing something more invasive. So there are many visual indications when there is a potential problem with stucco. I want to go over some of these one by one real quick. We got some cool pictures. And that, again, that gives you that psychological safety, helps you, it makes you a little better equipped to identify problems in the field, and make you look brilliant in front of clients. All right.
I like to look brilliant.
Yeah, don't we all? Okay. All right, the first one's cracks. Cracks are very common. Now, a single hairline crack may not be a bad sign. Numerous cracks could be an indication of a bigger problem, but not
Mhm.
always.
Mm.
Okay. Especially those really thin hairline cracks, those are typically associated with shrinkage. All
Mhm.
right. Remember, though, when you have multiple cracks, these represent movement, regardless of the type of
Mhm.
or the cause of the cracks. So, in other words, you add up each crack in order to determine how much.
Mm.
So, for simple math, if you had 8 1/8 inch cracks, that's the same as a 1 inch crack. Does that make sense?
Okay.
In other words, you wouldn't look and go, oh, look, that's a really tiny crack. Well, we're going to add up all the cracks to determine how much movement. And remember, they all allow water in, but that's an easy example. If you have large cracks, though, this could indicate a structural issue, right? That picture on the left, right, where you're seeing huge cracks like an earthquake hit that thing, that's an indication of a much bigger problem. That's not shrinkage, right? That looks like the foundation, the foundation that holds the whole house up, the whole wall up, right? This is going to require further investigation. And we're simple inspectors. We can't see what that foundation looks like. And every single time you're going to have the inspector recommend further evaluation. And that, I don't think anybody here is going to argue with that. That's an obvious one, right? Now, the crack on the picture on the right, that definitely looks like it's going to be a water intrusion problem, number one, right? That but looking at that window wasn't installed right either. So again, we don't know what kind of concealed damage exists, or if any damage exists, right? I'm going to do my best to find something on the interior, follow those kind of steps that we talked about, but some small cracks can be fixed. This is going to allow water. This doesn't scare me so much. It's not out of plane. It's not rotational. This looks like it was installation and lack of maintenance, and it can be repaired. I just don't know if there's any concealed damages. That's all. The one on the left, that's gonna something is going on there. Next, we have stains, stucco stains, and as unsightly as they might be, you really want to avoid the temptation to paint over them, as new paint might stick to the discoloration, but if it's stuck to that and that's not stuck to the house, it'll fail anyway, right? So just like cracks, you need to know what's going on. You should always address the underlying problem first before just painting over anything. Some stains are very obvious and, just simply require cleaning. If the irrigation head or something is hitting it, that's pretty obvious, right? You see that brownish arc as the sprinkler goes past. That's an easy one, right? No need to panic there. If you're seeing fungal growth, this is an indication of a chronic moisture condition. Maybe it's gutter related, you need gutters. You need some kind of diversion techniques, grading or drainage, other things that may be involved there. Other thing I think is important, I think we talked about it earlier, is making sure you put the right kind of paint on there. If you do a full elastomeric, that was the word I was trying to think of before. If you put on a full elastomeric paint, you're sealing everything. You're not only covering up a problem, but you could be making it way worse. Okay, because now moisture is trapped. It cannot evaporate. It can't escape. It can only cause more deterioration. So you want a good breathable, and the coatings experts at Sherwin-Williams or whatever your color wheel, whatever your favorite store is, can help you with that. Here we have stucco moss. It's not unusual for moss to grow in chronically wet areas, usually north side of the house, shady areas, stuff like that. So if you have a side of the house, or sometimes the houses are really close together, and it doesn't have the same drying potential, right? They stay wet longer, and then you get growth and stuff like that. Moss, of course, can be scrubbed away. Sometimes it water, bleach, borax, soap, stuff like that. Really just depends the situation, how bad it is. There's a lot of cleaning solutions out there, so don't quote me. I'm not the expert on cleaning solutions, but typically local hardware stores can help you there. So if it's something where it's a pretty major issue and you have a lot of discoloration, and there's a lot of different products out there. However, I think it is essential to address the moisture problem that's creating the conducive condition for the moss to grow in the first place. If it's gutters, well, that's very common. Gutters are a great way to remove some of the quantity of water that's present in hitting a certain area. You want to get that moisture diverted away from the structure, period. If you're having that excess moisture and it's so much moisture to a point it's causing moss, that condition can be even detrimental to the foundation ultimately. So diversion techniques, managing the water, those kind of techniques have to be employed. Making sure that the grade slopes away, simple things like that. You can avoid a lot of these problems. Sometimes if you've got an area that is just a chronic, problem, maybe sometimes you have to prune some of the vegetation away, take out bushes, use rocks or something like that to help facilitate drying, right? Help the evaporation process. Anything like that steps like that you can take to minimize moisture at the walls from staying on the walls, enhance the drying potential. Things like that are going to be critical. Next, crumbling stucco. Crumbling stucco could be due to age, could be very, very old. And if you have ever been to Europe, you see a lot of those buildings are constructed with stone and granite and, big things like that. And they understood hundreds of years ago, as opposed to the United States, that hasn't been around nearly as long. That is part of the design of those buildings. Nothing lasts forever. So they want the first thing to fail being the mortar joints, because those can be scraped and repointed. All right. So that's an expected failure in some of those. And we get the same thing here. So when it's crumbling, it can be simply age. It can be stress, and that could be sun stress. It can be pest infestation. It could be foundational, where you get the clay soils, the rising and the falling, the settlement and stuff like there. Sometimes you've heard stories about vibrations, local construction. Those can impact the stucco as well. You get stuff like that, it's time for an inspection, right? You need to do that to help identify the root cause of problems and help provide remediation recommendations. And like we talked, the sooner you get it fixed, the less likely you are to have water penetrations that lead to other bad things. This one, if you see this, you got a problem immediately, right?
God.
Yeah, exactly. By the time you notice this condition, it's
Too
probably
late.
yeah, by the time you notice this, it's telling you there's going to be some significant damage inside, right? Unfortunately, water damage can sometimes require extensive structural repairs. and you have those, you have all the secondary, the mold issues, termites, those kind of things too. So once you start seeing this, this is a major red flag. And this just reminds me, this weekend I was driving by an area where I know that those buildings, they're all these townhouses, and they've already ripped off the sides of several of those buildings. I've inspected several units in there. They've already ripped off all the stucco before, and they're doing it again. You think, wow, you would have learned your lesson, maybe hired a different crew or something, because it's happening again. But again, big red flag. This is where I'd recommend at that point doing maybe some intrusive, invasive investigation. But bottom line, something this bad, it's coming off, right? Either way, it's coming off. This is a replace, not a repair job. This is big time. All right, another red flag is interior, right? Now, water damage to interior walls and ceilings, they have found some kind of pathway. So that's any crack. It can be any penetration, windows, doors, vents, flashings, things of that nature, right? They could all be potential indication of an issue with your exterior cladding. And this doesn't just go for stucco. This goes for any kind of siding, fiber cement, brick, stone, wood, whatever else you have there, right? The type of damage that you look at in this picture is concerning, especially since again, this location, there's no plumbing here. So you look at that, you can see some stuff growing through. Now you start to ask yourself, has that impacted air quality? Further investigation and lab testing would probably be required or recommended by your inspector for something like this. Now, this could also be an issue with a roof. Sometimes water damage can manifest in one place, but the source is another, right? We've all seen that. So this is going to take some investigation. If with roof leaks, it can travel down trusses and then down studs and manifest in places you think you have an entirely different problem, and it came from missing kick out on your chimney. Like, you never know, right? So the next step is trying to identify where it's sourcing from. It's always number one. Correct that condition first, then you can repair the damage. If there's mold growth, that's mold remediations, it's getting rid of the stuff that's damaged. Containment it's contain and remove and put back together. It's a simple process. It's just expensive, that's all. But when you have something like this, if you go trying to do this yourself, mind you, and you can tell your clients this, when you disturb this, spores are very, very tiny and they're very, very light. And now all of a sudden you start to cross-contaminate other parts of the house. So when you've got visible stuff, I would leave this to a higher authority, if you will, somebody, a mold assessor or a mold remediator, somebody like that can recommend the proper remediation process. But now I think we've highlighted some of the warning signs of potential issues. The next thing, obvious thing, is to talk about some maintenance, right? Help maximize the lifespan of your stucco. I said it once, I said it a million times, the better you caulk, seal, and paint, the better the house is going to perform, right? So here's just a few recommendations that I put together for stucco maintenance. First one's going to be regular cleaning. So just simply keeping it clean. Just like any exterior product, stucco gets dirty easily. A simple spray of your garden hose or pressure washer, something like that, may do the trick. There's lots of cleaning products that you can use. The next thing would be sealing it when needed, sealing, all right? On exceptionally poor paint condition houses, Sealant can be a good idea. You want to get the house properly cleaned, then sealed, then paint. All right. If you don't, we refer to them as drive-by paint jobs when the house isn't properly prepped. The new paint will stick to the old paint, but the old paint isn't stuck to the house. So it's a waste of time.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's a waste of time when things aren't properly prepped. And then seal all those penetrations and all that kind of stuff. So we're talking every window, every coach light, every gas line that might be coming in, every hose bib, receptacles, electrical panels, like the list goes on and on. Anything that's penetrating that exterior envelope, you got to make sure that you keep that thing nice and sealed. And if you use 99-cent caulk that's rated for interior use, the only thing you're going to gain is the exercise that you got putting it on, right? You're asking a product to be exposed to UV, get hot, get cold, get wet, get dry every single day. So you have to choose the right products, which is why it's use your resources. Ask the I always refer to Sherwin-Williams because I have one around the corner. So I always use them. I trust them. They are the experts. And yeah, I get asked if you can just seal over the top, or do you have to remove old caulk and old sealants around windows and stuff? And the answer is always, it depends. Obviously, you're going to remove as much of the old sealant as you can, especially anything that's damaged and failed. Get as much of that caca out as you can. The better and cleaner substrate that you can provide, the better the new product is going to perform, right? So in doing that, you're going to help keep the bugs and that kind of stuff out also. Making repairs and make them quickly. Don't wait. Stucco is extremely durable and rigid, but it's still susceptible to cracks and chips, and nothing gets better with time. It can only get worse. If you don't believe me, ask your knees. It will tell you. So I know that this has been a lot of stuff, and I think this is probably a good place where we bury this this presentation. And do you know what they call a place, by the way, where concrete's buried?
Hold on. Concrete is buried. No.
A cemetery.
Oh, shit. I've gotten that one.
All right. That's where we will bury this. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
That was great. I gave you my email address, so if you can,
Awesome.
I would love this presentation.
Awesome. Anybody that leaves their email address in the chat, I will send it to you. And feel free to use me as a bad comedic example. That way I won't be completely, totally useless. If anybody wants to sit around and ask questions and talk shop, I'm more than happy to do that. Again, I put the links in there for other classes and stuff like that. Feel free to get a hold of us. And with that said, thank you. I'll do my best to answer whatever questions you got.
So basically, they don't really use synthetic stucco anymore then, correct?
No, they do use it in our area, mostly commercial.
Okay.
You'll get different opinions. My
Okay.
personal opinion is when it's installed properly as designed, mind you, these things have been tested extensively by manufacturers before they put it out. So if it's done properly, it performs very well. When it's not done properly, or it's damaged and ignored, water gets in and then the bad things happen. And
Okay.
it just is what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But
This is a great presentation. And do you do all the presentations?
I do now. Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
okay. Well,
I've done, I think,
yeah.
10 or 12 of them so far.
Okay. Well, I just found the card that was given to Max Home Inspections.
Uh-huh.
And they gave this card about the available classes. So I'm looking forward, anytime I can learn, it's wonderful.
I look forward to telling more bad building jokes.
Oh yes, I look forward to it. Well, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Miss Lisa. Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.